I spend a lot of time here at The Rebel talking about the scandals at Queen's Park. It's a tough job keeping track of them, but the man that has the tougher job is Patrick Brown, leader of the official opposition at Ontario's legislature and leader of Ontario's Progressive Conservative Party. How do you do it? How do you keep track of them all? Because I've got another one to ask you about today.
Well, the pace of the scandal is bewildering. Normally you talk about OPP investigations, you talk about one. For the first time in our history, we've had a government that's faced 5 OPP investigations into their own criminal misconduct. So certainly there's no shortage of issues to raise at Queen's Park.
Yeah, I don't think that this latest one, and full kudos to Adrian Morrow at Globe and Mail. I had him on radio the other day talking to him about this. He found out that it's not something that'll lead to an OPP investigation, but it doesn't pass the smell test. And this is news that cabinet ministers were using their senior staff, the same people that would deal with stakeholders for official business, to then call up those stakeholders and ask for donations, tell them to come to fundraisers. In some cases saying the minister doesn't have time to meet with you during the day, but if you've got a few $1,000s, he'll talk to you or she'll talk to you at this fundraiser. How can a government do that? You've been around politics a long time. I don't think that would be allowed at the federal level where you came out of.
Well, it certainly wouldn't be allowed in Ottawa. There's an Accountability Act that specifically prohibits that. This is all about a culture of abuse and crossing ethical lines. It's one of the reasons that the PC party called for a public inquiry. We said to Premier Wynne, if you have nothing to hide, if nothing's been done wrong, you should call a public inquiry, like the Gomery Commission, like the Charbonneau Commission in Quebec. And frankly, those investigations started with less evidence than we have here in Ontario, where the evidence is overwhelming that lines have been crossed. First of all, Kathleen Wynne gave every minister a fundraising target to stay in cabinet. Huge fundraising targets. The fact that the staff...
It wasn't just a goal of, hey, guys, we need to raise money. It was, if you don't make this, you're out.
There is minimum fundraising mandates. And the worst part of it is they had to raise it off their own stakeholders, people that were seeking contracts with the government. Like, this is unbelievable, unacceptable, and it has created bad public policy. Kathleen Wynne says that it didn't really change our policy. She is absolutely categorically wrong. Let me give you a few examples. The big Hydro One fire sale, where it devalued shares of a public asset were sold. The syndicate that did the sale got $30 million in fees, had a thank you dinner, $160,000 fundraiser for the Liberal Party, and surprise, surprise, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Energy are headlining the fundraiser. Look at the wind turbines for energy we don't need. We've signed 25-year agreements for energy that we now have to give to Michigan, to New York, to Quebec, and the companies that got the wind contracts, 99.4% of them were major donors to the Ontario Liberal Party. Bad policy was bought, and everyone in Ontario is paying for it.
Do you think that the changes, she's brought in Bill 201, do you think that the changes put forward in that are enough to stop what we've seen in the past from the Ontario Liberals? Do they go as far as what we have at the federal level?
They don't, and I think the federal model works quite well, and praise to the federal government in 2006 when they had the courage to bring that in. What Kathleen Wynne has done is she's, only because she's been embarrassed in the front pages of every newspaper, she's said, okay, we're willing to make some changes, but she's trying to leave giant loopholes. She's not willing to adjust, fix lobbying. Right now in lobbying, you can work in the minister's office one day and then go work for a company the minister gave a contract to the next day.
And be fundraising in between those two times.
And there's many examples of how that has been egregiously abused, specifically in the Minister of Energy's office. The other thing that they're not willing to address is federally, you can't give a gift in kind corporately. Right now they're saying that if you're a big wind company or a big company that's getting business from the government, you're not going to be able to give a donation next year, but if you wanted to pay for 100 campaign staff, you could. So you can pay for staff time on a campaign. So
how is that not a donation?
It is a donation, and so it's infuriating that they're trying to get away with this. They're trying to create giant loopholes. And if Kathleen Wynne was committed to election finance reform, she wouldn't have created these loopholes. What she's trying to do is, once again, pull the wool over the eyes of the Ontario public.
I can tell you for a fact that for the last several elections in Ontario, unions in this province have been sending staff. I've had friends who have been assigned to go work on campaigns that they don't even support, but the union pays them to go in and work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, to get Liberals elected. That's why they don't want to do this.
And I'm sure there's some of that happening, but there's also examples where those getting the huge fat contracts from the government,
They're also paying
they're
people?
also paying people. They're also giving donations, and it's almost expected. And so my message to Kathleen Wynne is, if you want the public to trust that you're doing this to clean up finances in Ontario, don't leave the loopholes. Otherwise, it's just going to be another example where Liberals are trying to trick the public.
So we're talking about fundraising scandals with the Ontario Liberals. We haven't even talked about really the energy. We've touched on it. There's all the investigations. Do you think that scandal after scandal just eventually washes over people and they don't even think about it anymore? It just, well, it's par for the course. Oh, another scandal with the Ontario Liberals.
Well, I do think it's diminished public service in Ontario, diminished people's image of politicians. But I do think we're at a point where people are beginning to be fed up. We've seen Kathleen Wynne's popularity reach an all-time low. Only 18% of the public approves of performance, the lowest we've seen a premier get in the province of Ontario. We've had 2 by-elections in the last year where the Conservatives won by the largest margins in 25 years. So there's a sense that that the public is starting to stand up and say enough is enough. And we're a year and 11 months away from an election, so a lot can happen in that period. But I think there is an appetite for change like we haven't seen in recent times.
The issue of energy, you mentioned the wind turbines. I know you were at a town hall meeting here in the Ottawa area, and you got questions about that. We're about to get more wind turbines put up in Eastern Ontario, in communities that said no, in communities where the town council said we don't want them, where residents have said we don't want them. And she promised that would not happen. She said if you're an unwilling host, you don't have to take these, and now she's forcing them in. What would you do if you were premier?
Well, first of all, I'd rip up the Green Energy Act. It's been an unmitigated disaster. This is bad policy bought. This is bad policy that you're paying for. And they hide it under your global adjustment. Let's call it the Kathleen Wynne adjustment on your bill. Because of these interventions, we have the highest, fastest rising energy rates in North America. It used to be a time when we had cheaper energy rates than Alberta, competitive with Manitoba and Quebec. Now we're triple that of Quebec. It's killing jobs. It's killing quality of life. And so I'm going to look at every tool I have available to fight this. And if that means working with municipalities who are unwilling hosts, to see if we have any legal recourse to get out of some of these deals, I believe it's incumbent upon the Premier of Ontario to look at the best interest of Ontario, and having bad deals that, frankly, many of us feel were bought with donations to the Ontario Liberal Party, but they're on your hydro bill. Then I think it's incumbent upon the Premier of Ontario to do whatever he can to make sure that sting is not a lasting one.
The fact is, these are pretty tight contracts, and they've been signed for 20, 25 years. Might not be a way to get out of the existing ones.
Well, let me say, starting point, I'm not going to sign any more. Where there's unwilling host, I think it shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be allowed. Simply saying that I would allow municipalities to choose as Premier if they want to have them would be actually honoring Kathleen Wynne's original promise, as funny as that is. Mm-hmm. But let me just make it a little simpler. In the last 2 years, we've given away $3.5 billion of energy because we've signed these contracts for energy we don't need. We're giving our energy at pennies on the dollar. So we're charging you more to subsidize it, and then we're giving it to companies in Michigan, Quebec, and New York. I can't continue that in good conscience here in the province of Ontario. I can't put Ontario at a disadvantage by continuing these reckless policies. So am I going to look at ways to change that? Any way I can.
You and I are both free market people. You and I both believe that the private sector can do things sometimes better, cheaper, faster than government can. There's a role for government. There's a role for the private sector. I look at the way the Ontario Liberals have done these public-private partnerships these long-term contracts, and I think it's a perversion of the market. No company I know would sign an ironclad 20, 25-year contract that they can't get out of. You sign contracts over 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. You don't sign 25-year supply contracts that, if things change, you're stuck with.
It makes no sense. They have given every accommodation they wouldn't have done for any other business. But the only thing that would make sense for this, because remember, we're buying stuff that we're giving away. Just repeat that. We're buying energy and then giving it to Michigan and Quebec and New York because we can't use it or store it because of the giant surplus we have. The only thing that adds up is all these companies, 99.4% of them, are major donors to the Ontario Liberal Party. It is that blatant. Bad public policy has been bought, and everyone in Ontario is paying for it.
I'll ask you this, and then we'll wrap it up. I think Kathleen Wynne's trying to distract us all with a great giant bauble. You can now order booze online, or you will soon be able to, from the LCBO. But it's hardly an Amazon.com type scenario. It's a $50 minimum order and a $12 delivery charge. Only a government agency could botch up online ordering that's been going on for, what, a decade and a half or more even.
Only the Ontario Liberal Party would add confusion and regulations to what might have been a good idea. Let me say, I support greater market access. I think it's a good thing, and so this may be a distraction. They may have convoluted it, but it's a step in the right direction. And so,
a step in the right direction that they kind of messed up along the way. I can't believe they messed up online ordering.
But I'd also say, with this government, know that they're very strategic in everything they do. When they had the fire sale of Hydro One and they were giving away shares almost at prices that were unconscionable because it's your property, it was your Hydro One. They also announced that they're going to have beer in supermarkets. So it was their way of, you know what? Oh, you're giving away a massive resource, but there's beer in supermarkets. They do things intentionally at the same times to distract the public. Adrian Morrow did a powerful expose on how the government was using taxpayer-funded staff to fundraise on behalf of the Liberal Party, and they come out with this. They are experts in distraction, and we have to call them out on it.
All right, Patrick Brown, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of The Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.